Okay, I'm making you an instructional sourdough video because this happens over like 3 days and it would probably be pretty hard to like show you in person for all of it. But anyway, this is my starter that was in the fridge for like 2 weeks, which I forgot to feed, but it's fine. I did just feed it. Because it just came out of the fridge, I'm probably gonna feed it again tonight, so I will record that when I do it. But what I'm gonna do first, now that I kind of have it fed and I want it to like reactivate, kitchen scale, right? Obviously need this if you don't already have it. I'm gonna tare it. It's everything I do in grams. When you're like getting started, you want to make sure that whatever jar you're using, I like these wide mouth mason jars because for me it's like, I don't know, when you're putting stuff in and out, it doesn't get like stuck on the lip. Weigh it and write down how much the jar weighs by itself. That way when you're doing stuff later, you can just mentally, or I mean with your phone, whatever, like subtract how much the jar weighs so you know what is in the jar. I'm going to transfer this newly fed starter into here just because I don't like it when they get like not dirty, but like crusty. So I'm going to transfer it in. I'm going to let it sit, honestly, probably until like tonight. It's 3 o'clock, so maybe like 9. Check on it, see how much it's grown. I'll probably, and I can show you this too, I'll remove excess starter to get it down to like probably 40 grams and then feed it again so that tomorrow morning it'll be ready for bread, or like for bread prep. Okay, I realized I could show you like two other things really quick. So when it's in the fridge and it's like sleeping, you just jar the lid pretty much like normal. I saw online that someone said they just kind of turn it until till it catches, so they don't like airtight it, but it's just like covered normally. When it's on the counter and you're actually when it's room temp at all, if it's room temp and you have it there for multiple days, you want to feed it every day. I go back and forth. Sometimes I'm baking enough that I need it on the counter pretty much every day because I'm doing like 3 loaves back to back, like 3 days back to back. But other times I'm just lazy and I don't want to deal with like waking it up if I put it in the fridge, so I'll just feed it, just, you know, gather the discard, feed it again, whatever. But anyway, when it's at room temp, you want to leave something like breathable over the top so you're not going to lid it like normal. I have 2 different things that I use. So I bought this like really cute like cloth set in Chicago for like bowl cover things, but they're just like cotton, so I can either put one of these over here, or I also have this like piece of cloth. It's just in cloth, that I can also like put over and then just kind of like tighten on with this so it's still breathable. What I'm looking for, because maybe this will be enough, like maybe it will be active enough in this one feeding for me to be able to use tomorrow, TBD. But basically when you feed it, I'm gonna feed it again tonight anyway just because I want it like super happy, so I'll record that. But once you do feed it, you want to mark like where the line is of stuff on the jar. I just use like a little dot, because what you're looking for is for the starter to double in size. So, you know, if I'm around here at the 6, right, I'd want to see it go up to like whatever this 12 line within about 5 hours or less. So if I came back in 3 hours and took a peek at it and it's like all the way up there, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is ready to go. Like I said though, even if it makes it all the way up there by like 8 p.m. tonight, I'm still gonna feed it because I could use the discard anyway. And then I can actually show you feeding it. It's super simple. It's just 40 grams of everything. So you remove what I don't always remove it, but you remove what you have in this jar of the starter so that you have 40 grams left. Then you add 40 grams of flour, 40 grams of water, mix it up. I use a knife, just because this shit's really sticky. So I think the less surface area is like nicer to just keep everything in here and not be removing a giant glob of the starter. But it's just a 1-to-1 ratio of everything. But I'll do it again tonight and I'll record that for you. Otherwise I'm just gonna let this sit on the counter. This is the starter that I fed earlier. This was the dot that I made, and you can see the high line of where it went in terms of how much it grew. So it definitely doubled, which means it is active enough to use, but I am going to feed it again. There's too much in the jar at this point, so I'm going to put some into my discard jar, which just lives in the fridge and I can use for discard recipes. So I'm going to weigh out what's in here to bring it down to, technically you would want 40 grams of everything, but I like to have a little bit of extra just in case, so I'll probably bring it down to 50, put the rest in the discard. Because if you have too much starter, when you add the other stuff, it might just explode. If you were to say do like 70, 70, 70, I think I did that once and it almost spilled over. Also, the cool thing about discard, which is the stuff that just lives in the fridge, is you never have to feed it, and it's good for basically like ever, even if it starts smelling really funky and alcoholic. You can still use it in discard recipes. Okay, I have like a little over 50. That'll be good enough. So I'm gonna tare it. You know, I'm gonna weigh things. I'm still gonna keep the 40. So I'm gonna do 40 grams of flour, which I do try to keep pretty exact. Okay. And then tare it. And 40 grams of water. 42, whatever, close enough. Okay. And then stir. If you over add something, you can obviously just even it out with the other thing. Like, I accidentally did 43 grams of water, which like doesn't sound like it makes a big difference, but the ratio should be such that when you stir it all together, it like almost has the consistency of like peanut butter. So kind of thick. But in theory, you can also just stick to it. If you do exactly like 42, you can do that too. Because it will work. Peanut butter, thick, super globby. Starter, when it dries, turns into like concrete. So, kind of clean it up a bit. Anyway. Right, put my top on. I can make another mark to show like where I'm starting at so that tomorrow in the morning when I wake up, I can see if that maximum line was like double. And if it is, which it should be considering it was already active enough today, then I can use it in the rest of it. Also, as a quick note, the discard, I usually just mix it all together so the new stuff is mixed in with the old. And then this guy actually does get like properly sealed. Not like crazy tight. Yeah, and then back into the fridge. Okay, so fed starter, obviously peaked pretty high, still coming down, but it definitely more than doubled. So I am ready to use this. Before I do that, I usually actually do my flour first, because I do use this bad boy just to make sure I don't have any clump. So again, kitchen scale. I use a small bowl because that fits enough. And I will weigh out basically exactly 600 grams of flour. Because that's all you need, at least for the ratio in the recipe that Emily gave me, and that recipe works great. So that's the one I'm using. Doing me flour. Soft, powdery flour. As a side note, you don't have to do this. I just do. You could just dump the flour in there. I think that's what Emily does. There's my 600 flour. I mean, you've got 3 other things to weigh out at this point because there's not much that goes into this. Your starter, your salt, and your water. Because I want the lower amounts to be more accurate, since I'm using like a heavy bowl on the scale, and I don't know, I just don't trust things. I do start with my starter, because I don't want to like potentially contaminate it with anything else. So if I put the salt in first and then I put the starter in, it's too much starter, like it had already touched the salt, like then it's just, what do I do? So I start with the starter. That's really annoying to say. 75 grams of this. Again, pretty much exactly. If I go a tiny bit over, like whatever, I just use a regular spoon. Just scoop this stuff out. But because it's like really sticky, I use also a knife to like literally just scrape it out of the spoon so that it goes into the bowl. 75. There's my starter. I've also done it like where it's like 79 and everything's been fine, so whatever. But I just like being exact. Tare it again, and then salt. You use 10 to 12 grams. I just aim for somewhere in there. Okay. Added me salt, 10 G's. Now my water, which I want 450. Obviously this you cannot take out. Tare, don't be silly. I've done it before where I forgot to tare. So yeah, be careful. It is kind of a lot of water. I use filtered water. Okay, I went over 455, but it'll be fine. Disgusting. Okay, anyway, so Dutch whisk. This is what I use for mixing everything. First, in big bowl, I'll just mix everything together. The starter, salt, and water. Just quick, nothing too crazy. Just so it looks mixed in. And then I pretty much do like you know, a whole small bowl of the flour. I'll add it in like 2 to 3 parts depending on my mood. I think doing it all at once is too hard, but you could do, I've done it in smaller increments, it just takes longer. So I'll probably do like half-half because I'm feeling lazy. And then I'm just mixing it. Mix, 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 mix. I don't know if you're supposed to do it until it's pretty homogeneous, but I do. I don't like the clumps. Looks good enough. And then I'm gonna dump the rest. Bam! And then I'm gonna mix this. That is probably good enough. I usually put it into a fresh bowl just because when you do stretch and folds later, I don't like all the excess flour and stuff sticking on the sides of the mixing bowl you use. So plop it in there. Wet fingers make it less sticky. If you touch this stuff with dry hands, it'll stick to you forever. Anyway, so I put it in. It's blobby, it's cool. I get my cover. Cover it. Come here. And then it sits for 30 minutes.
Voila.
On the counter, or if your oven has a proofing setting, you can do that too. So it's been about 30 minutes. That's not like a super hard rule, at least I don't follow it super hard. The colder it is, oh my god, my hair, the longer it takes to do its thing. So that's why, at least in the winter now, I'm using my bread proofing setting on my oven, because at least it keeps it at a consistent temperature, and it's definitely warmer than it is in my kitchen. But there's lots of flexibility, I think, with when you do these like stretch and fold things. In general, I target to do 4 of them total. So this will be the first. I'll have, you know, 3 more after this, typically in like 30-minute intervals. If I'm doing it on the counter and my kitchen is like 65 degrees, I'll usually wait longer and maybe do like 45 minutes in between, because it doesn't want to stretch as much when it's like really cold. But this should be fine because it was in my oven. It still just looks like sploot. As I mentioned earlier too, it's really freaking sticky if you touch it with dry hands. So I do this right by the sink, and literally, obviously I wash my hands, but then I wet them again to actually stretch and fold it. Hands are wet. I'm just gonna start on one side, kind of scoop underneath, scoop my fingers underneath there, literally stretch it up, and then just fold it on itself. Bam, stretched it, folded it. I'm gonna rotate it, wet my hands again. Mine obviously was stretching no problem. I think sometimes again when it's like cold, it's a little resistant. So work with it. If it doesn't want to stretch that much and it's feeling kind of stiff, fold early. If it's like, yeah, I'm happy, let's stretch, stretch. But that's how it looks now. Kind of has a little bit more shape. I am gonna put inclusions in here. I'm gonna make a jalapeno cheddar for myself. If my cheddar's still good. Maybe it's just gonna be jalapeno. I don't know. But I do that on the second round of stretch and fold. It'll be the same motions, right? That same pull, fold, pull, fold. I'll show you, obviously. But every time I will load it with whatever my inclusions are, my jalapeno or whatever I put in there. Then I stretch it and fold it over the inclusions, rotate it, put another pile on, stretch it, fold it over. 30 more minutes. Cover, leave it. I forgot to mention that if you're doing inclusions, if you're making just traditional sourdough, which is all I did for the first month, probably more, you don't have to worry about this. You'll just do the stretch and folds the way that I show you later. But if you eventually start adding things in, this is when I prep my stuff. So I'll do the first stretch and fold. I know I have 30 minutes, so I can take my time getting things ready. Depending on what you're gonna put in, you can just kind of YOLO it and, figure it out yourself, how many grams of whatever you're gonna put in. But there's usually recipes out there. When I did my first jalapeno cheddar, I think they said something I don't even remember, to be honest. It was 50 grams of jalapeno and 120 grams of cheese or something. I eventually decided that I personally just like it really loaded, so I put in a shit ton of both. Just a bunch of jalapenos and a bunch of cheese. It's just, this is a good time to prep your shit. Also, more laziness for my cheese grating, because this is my ghost pepper cheddar. I actually used exactly half of this last time, so this works out. I use the big side because I don't want to deal with the super micro pieces, because that sounds hard. But it works out well with this. I just do short, so they're not super long pieces. I don't know if that actually makes a difference or not. Probably bullshit. Anyway. Aha! There's my cheese. One thing I forgot to mention, if you're using things say, the pickled jalapenos or olives that are obviously in some kind of brine or oil, I like to kind of pat them dry, because I found that if you just put them in all nice and moist, the bread around it kind of gets soggy after you bake it. Not soggy, but I think it's just better texture, consistency, whatever, if you kind of pat out some of the moisture. So just a note. It's been another 30 minutes-ish, so I'm going to, we got Blabbery McBlabberson is still there. I'm gonna go ahead, obviously my hands are clean. These are all the jalapenos that I plan to put in, all the cheese. So I usually start pretty strong and just kind of try to fill in kind of this whole middle. Okay, so I got him looking like that. Now I'm gonna pile on some cheese. So it looks like that. Wet my hands underneath, same as before. Pull up to the sky and then right over. The one difference is because now I've got a lump of all this shit in there, I actually will use the back of my fingers to just kind of smush it down. flatten it out a little bit so I don't have issues with the next stretch and fold. Just so we kind of flatten out, even though it's packed with all the yummy things. And then same thing again. I want this sticky end to stick to that sticky end, so since I'm gonna pull it that way, do it like that. Here's how we're looking. Bam! And then kind of squish it down again. I don't know if that's a proper technique, it's what I do. All right, rotate, and we go again. And then for my last stretch and fold, because again, it's like kind of one on each side, I'm just gonna put the rest of this cheese. Yum, 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 yum. It definitely is like resisting me more. You can tell, see I'm not getting very high. That's fine. I'm just enough to tuck it over so that cheese is covered. And then maybe I'll give them a quick smash. Okay, I'm gonna do probably, yeah, 4. I should have time to do 4 today. So this is what it looks like. Nothing too exciting, slightly rounder blob. But now I'm going to cover it, stick it back in the oven on that bread proof setting, and then the next 2 stretch and folds will look a little bit different because I'm going to do the coil, so you'll see what that looks like. But I usually do, no matter what, inclusions or otherwise, I usually do the first 2 stretch and fold, just like this, and then the second 2 I'll do like the coil method. So see what that looks like. So it's been another 30-ish minutes. Honestly, I think it was a little bit more. Here's what we're looking like now. Still blobby, just a little bit bigger. So this one, you scoop one hand under each side and gently pick it up. There it is. Then I'm gonna place it back in the bowl with those 2 ends kind of touching if I can. Bam! See, so it's like, these ones help give it a little bit more structure, like more of that round shape. I'll only do it twice. There you go. I will do it one more time in about half an hour. And obviously, same, right? Gonna cover it with my little like breathable cotton cover, and then I'm gonna put it back in the oven on my, since I do have the bread proof mode. But otherwise you would just leave it on the counter. Okay, this is the last coil. There he is, Bobby McBlobberson. There you go. That's it for now. So the next part is waiting. You want this guy to 1.5 times or like 1.5x or 2x its size. So I thought it was really hard to judge at first, but what I have learned through experience is that I can mess it up one way or the other and the bread is gonna be fine. I'm probably gonna consider him done because it's gonna flatten out when he gets to maybe around here. It'll probably, in the oven on proof mode, take like 5 hours or less. When it's cold out and I leave it countertop, you also just leave it covered like this. I've had it take like 8 hours, which is crazy. So it just kind of depends. I just check on it after like 4 hours. I'll give it a peek, see how it's growing, and then just kind of monitor from there. I'll show you what it looks like once it's actually like ready to go, because you'll see the size of it, and then I'll show you how to shape it. So bread proofed. It's actually really massive and it looks gross, but that's okay. It probably is more than double the original size, but it should still work. So I take that out of the oven. I take my banneton, which is what I'm gonna put the shaped sourdough in, and I just coat the whole thing with flour. I use the flour I already have, but some people use rice flour because it supposedly like doesn't stick as much. I don't give a shit. Anyway, then I also am gonna prepare a cutting board, also with flour, because this is where I'm gonna dump it out and shape it. So I cover the whole thing because once you pour it out, it tends, mine at least, is really blobby and like will expand. And if it touches like a part of the cutting board without flour, it might stick and you don't want it to tear. So, okay, that should be good. So this is a super awkward part. I don't know if there's a better method, but this is what I do. I use this thing to let gravity and like just kind of scrape it so it doesn't tear itself as it starts like oozing out. Awkward, but it works, I swear. Okay, it's out. Okay, so now, much flour. Step one, you take one side, it's already sticking to the cutting board, fold it over, and then the other side, fold it over. Okay, so now it's like a open burrito. I might turn it a little bit if I can. Okay, so to shape it, you're trying to get it into like something resembling a kind of a ball, and you want to increase surface tension. So there's a lot of different methods on the internet. The one that I do, I flour up, I grab one end of it, I push it, and then kind of roll it in on itself. And then I just do that over and over again. So I kind of gather the sides, I push and I roll. And gather the sides. Things will start poking out, it doesn't really matter. Push and roll. You might need to put more flour on you so it doesn't stick to you because it's sticky. Guest star honey. Push and roll. Okay. So now it wasn't the most beautiful ball, so you can kind of play with it after, although I always have to put more flour on it so it doesn't stick to me. And I basically just work it in like a circular motion and kind of try to curl it in on itself, because the sticky parts, the one good thing is they stick to themselves. So as long as I keep playing with the top of it, which has flour so it won't stick to me, and just kind of keep rolling this bottom side into itself, it should stick together pretty well. So there, you know, it's vaguely round, which is pretty much all you need. I'll put a little bit more flour on top because now I'm going to flip it into the banneton and try to keep it in a circular shape so it doesn't get all kooky. And I'm not very ceremonious about this. Bam! So now it's in. It's gonna proof more in the fridge, which you leave in for 12 to 24 hours. The longer it's in the fridge, the more sour it's supposed to be. I actually don't have a big seam here, but sometimes it's really obvious when you flip it over that there's like a seam, and you can stitch it, which like I guess isn't to increase tension, but you basically like pull one side and then the other, and it exposes like the sticky part so it starts sticking to itself. But again, it increases surface tension so that you have like a better crust. But not super necessary with this one, but that's one way to like kind of help tighten it up. And that's it. Then I'm gonna cover it, but I'll just use the same cotton cover thing. Cover it up and put it in the fridge. Yay! It is the next day. It is around 11 a.m. So sourdough has been, I think it's been in the fridge for like 14 hours or something, which is good enough for me just based on the time I have available. I am going to preheat my oven to 500 with my, what do you call this thing? Dutch oven in the oven. but I'm going to preheat to 500. It says in Emily's notes to do, I think, like 30 minutes. I wait until it's preheated. That's pretty much it. See. Beep. When I see that it's like at 460, I'll bring the dough out and start scoring it and getting it ready to go in. Okay, it's been 25 minutes. I'm going to set another kitchen timer for 25, and then I'm going to change my temp here to 450. Beep. And the only thing I have to do is take the lid off of my Dutch oven. Just so you can take a sneak peek. That's how it's looking. We'll be back in 25. I was just going to show you first all the things that I have laid out for when I'm prepping the dough to actually go in the oven. So I got one of these guys. You don't need this. You can use, I think, just like parchment paper. But I like this silicone guy because it's just reusable. So that's cool. I have this thing that I actually use for making cocktails, but you know, I'll show you. It's to just kind of get that nice flour coating over everything. For scoring, you use a razor blade, which is terrifying, I think. So I bought this handy dandy little like tool for it so I don't kill myself, because I used to just hold the razor blade, and that's scary. So this is much safer. And then I have my flour because, like I said, I'm gonna pat to make it pretty. This will be nice and quick. This is what it looks like now. Obviously it got a little bit bigger, it got a lot stiffer. It was still kind of like soft, squishy, sticky before. Now it's a little bit more firm. Definitely gonna hold its shape better. I just lay this bad boy on top and then flip it over and peel it up all around it to make it pretty. So just gentle pat all the way around, just so it's kind of like an even coat, because I think it makes the scoring, I mean, it does make the scoring way more prominent and pretty, I think. And it's like really low effort to do this, like boom, 20 seconds, bada bing, bada boom, looks good. For scoring, you can, like, the first 6 loaves I made, I think I just did one deep cut down the center to just get like the really pretty ear. I obviously have since started doing more things. You can find inspiration on the internet. Oh my god, my bangs are chaotic. I also, when I ordered this little like tool thing, they sent this cute booklet that like has different like score patterns and stuff and kind of shows you how to do it, like where you do a shallow one, where you do thick ones, and blah 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 blah. Anyway, so there's all different kinds of options. Today I'm probably gonna go for one of my like easier ones. Is I'm just gonna do a deep cut down the center. Sometimes I'll apply a little pressure on the surface so it doesn't kind of snag. So one deep cut there, and then I'm gonna do the wheats. Those I just do like short little like 1-inch cuts down in a line, and then I do kind of like opposing ones on the other side, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'm pretty messy about it. It'll look fine. It's fine. But yeah, I'm kind of lazy. I don't really get too fancy with this too often. Every once in a while I'll try something new. But I feel like the wheats always look cute. But that's what it looks like. Also, I'm gonna prep my timer here. So it's gonna be 25 minutes. Kitchen timer, 25. Bam, bam. I'm also going to adjust. So it's still gonna bake, but it's actually gonna bake at 475. Tis hot, tis very hot. Grab either side of this and plop it in the Dutch oven. There it is. Okay, lid on. There she is. And start my timer. So I'm gonna come back in 25 minutes. It's been 25 minutes. I'm going to set another kitchen timer for 25. And then I'm going to change my temp here to 450. Beep. And the only thing I have to do is take the lid off of my Dutch oven. We'll be back in 25. Okay, timer just went off for the second set of 25 minutes. I'm gonna take a peek, look, see how brown it is. I like it to get pretty dark on top for the crust. So if it's not there yet, I'll probably leave it in another 2 minutes at a time until it looks like what I want it to. I want 2 more minutes. So, gonna wait. I think it looks brown enough, cooked enough. The ear is getting almost burnt, so it looks good to me. So I'll take that out, and just because I don't want the bottom to like burn or anything, I will immediately put it on a cooling rack. And there she is. The only other thing, usually you want to wait like an hour minimum for it to cool before you cut it. A, because it's hot, but B, because if you like push down on it while it's still fresh out of the oven, then you might actually like squish the insides and not get as fluffy as a crumb. Yeah, there she is.